Hello, good morning. It's Amy and Brent. It's the babbling boomers. I don't know. What can we say? Today we thought we'd talk about the climate of rentals and vacation rentals in the greater Port Angeles area. And
Doesn't that sound like fun?
and our city council is trying desperately to control it for the vacation rentals because they have not realized, they've come up with the idea that the vacation rental owners are the problem for lack of rentals for normal people, normal work. Jump in here, Annie.
Yeah. So in our area, there's some discussion on how many vacation rentals there are because they're mostly the primary platforms on the computer to reserve one is either VRBO, vacation rental by owner, also known as Verbo, and Airbnb. And so we've heard figures up to 700, and that's not accurate at all because whoever did that research accessed,
A
well out,
wide swath.
yeah, well outside of the city limits. So
Well, and then it includes motel rooms that are on there,
yeah.
and little Susie's room in the basement that she rents out.
Yeah, for Airbnb.
So yeah. Anyway,
So we've been doing it for almost 13 years, and really it's a part of our retirement because it was a good opportunity. We purchased a house that has had potential for 2 units to rent out, and then we're renting both of those now short term. And when we started, there were 39 vacation rentals by our count in 2010. Was that when we started?
11.
2011. And today we figure probably around 150 in Port Angeles. And so anyway, the city council wants to put a moratorium on any new vacation rental.
It's not going over well.
Yeah.
So, the market does cure the market, and they will run out, or they'll be, it's just not the way it is.
So we tend to be fans of the free market because supply and demand, everything tends to regulate and balance out. For instance, since we've been a vacation rental, almost all of the other vacation rentals that were before us are gone. And I think we are the oldest one in the city now.
Yeah.
We've been here longer than anybody else. And because we watch the market, there's a constant turnover. And if you would add to that the fact that having a long-term rental carries a certain liability to it, because Washington State has a ever increasingly generous landlord tenant law and generous toward the tenants. So maybe a few years ago it was 60-40 weighted toward the tenant because of some abuses by landlords. Now it's probably 80-20.
Yeah, we can cite it. Well, we had breakfast with friends that have a little apartment complex kind of thing. And they were telling us the story of their renter who hasn't paid rent regularly. He owed them, well, since the pandemic. He owed them 17,000 in rent that they could not get. So they had to hire an attorney for another five, and then once he destroyed the apartment because he of course was a hoarder. So we're talking about 50,000 is what the landlord will have to pay total to get this guy out.
Yeah, so the state law says just because the guy trashes your rental, if he's been there longer than 30 days, and just because he hasn't paid rent since he moved in, that's not good enough to evict him. So there's this social framework that they have to apply, using all sort of, is he a protected class? The different rules. And so it may take you up to a year by the time you can finally get the sheriff out. And we all observe this process because, it wasn't that big of an apartment. And so by the time the law enforcement is involved, the court makes a judgment and you spent your $23,000 trying to, this is part of your income. Man, there was piles of garbage and stuff that they pulled out of that little apartment on the street. And I think he has, a couple of days to get his stuff and leave.
But everybody took it as a yard sale.
Yeah.
Free
Free.
yard sale. Anyway, so that was our friends.
Yeah. So for us, we would never rent long term either one of our units because
unless it was family
because they are in the same structure in which we live. Our house was built with a dedicated separate entrance, separate meter upstairs apartment when we moved in.
And once someone has stayed 30 days, the renter's rights kick in.
Yeah.
So who needs that?
Yeah. So we know other people who have rentals who are systematically getting out of the rental market.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem, and our council is not addressing that.
No. And then builders aren't building apartment buildings because it costs so much money for the permits and all those hoops you have to jump through, and
Are we whining?
yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Have we lost everybody now? I think I'm turning that off.
we
But
can tell you a fun story
yeah, what's that?
from some of our guests that
Yeah.
have stayed.
Okay.
So the kitchen of our apartment is right above our bedroom.
Oh, gee.
So sometimes they get going. Sometimes they're fighting or arguing. Sometimes they're listening to loud ethnic music. And one particular night, they were dancing to the wild ethnic music, and we were stunned.
It was like 11:30 at night, and the
We
music was some
kind of stompy
kind
and
of sitar.
and
Forget that. my imitation.
yeah. Anyway, so I sent Brent out in his bathrobe and his little white skinny legs
Come on.
to skirt the shadows, to run out to the park in front of our house to take a peek to see if they were actually dancing, and yes, they were.
And then they had their clothes on. That was my concern. Oh, gee. I don't want to. Anyway,
Yeah.
but almost all of our guests are just wonderful.
Yeah.
We love meeting them. Some of you maybe have been our guests before, and we hope you can come back. So, one other thing that we're going to close up this cheerful broadcast is that in Port Angeles today, there's roughly, and I think it's 250 homes that are not hooked up with utilities. They're just sitting there empty.
Yeah.
We have one right across the street who's owned by a friend of ours. But so there's nobody living there, and you drive around town, you see these.
So it's not they're not in the rental market. So
yeah.
that's way more.
Yeah, so the vacation rentals are under 2% of the rental population. So it's really kind of a lame thing to be picking on. So anyway, summarize babbling boomers today.
I don't know. If you're looking to buy a house to have a vacation rental, I think I would show up at the Tuesday city council meeting.
Yeah, what time does that start?
At 6.
Tuesday at 6. Be there or be square.
Yeah.
Well, have a great week. Well, I keep posting. Maybe not this format again because I got bored just doing it. I mean, I kind of missed it, but you were like to watch it. So.
Actually, probably by the time this is on the web, it'll be past the city
Yeah,
council meeting.
nobody's.
So watch the newspaper.
Actually, 0 people are watching right now. So we've lost you. Have a great week. We'll see you back sometime in the future.